In this episode of Winning Strategies, we're going to talk about some of the biggest risks in retirement income planning. We're going to talk about the difference between 82% and 2%. We're going to talk about the cruelest tax that many of your clients probably don't feel in the first couple years of retirement. And I'm going to share some stories from my books, Free Throws for Financial Professionals. I like looking at a lot of case studies. We had an actual case come into Ash Brokerage several years ago, which I think is very telling about one of the largest risks that clients face in retirement income planning, and that's the risk of long-term care. We had a client come in and ask us to solve, do they have the right asset allocation? Do they have the correct withdrawal rate to be able to sustain themselves all the way to age 95? And they had a 99% probability of success. So we made no recommendations to change Social Security, add an annuity, or do anything different with their pension plans. However, in talking with them, they did have a history of long-term care events in their family. And so we placed a long-term care event into their plan, and we only had it last for 3.5 years. The probability of success of the surviving spouse fell to 2%. If they had purchased long-term care insurance, their probability of success was still 95% on their cash flow, so they're still fully optimized. But in the event of that long-term care event, that surviving spouse still had an 82% chance of making sure that they had retirement income all the way to age 95. Their response was, I can live with 82%, but I can't live with 2%. That's a perfect example of making sure that long-term care is not just a capital issue, it's a cash flow problem. It's a cash flow problem especially for that caregiver and for that surviving spouse. You have to make sure there is sufficient cash flow during the care event, as well as making sure there's enough cash flow, guaranteed cash flow, for that surviving spouse. So your winning strategy is to make sure that you have the conversation of long-term care and make sure that you talk about cash flow and not just capital. Many people think that long-term care is one of the largest risks in retirement, and I would agree that it is a large one. However, inflation can be just as devastating over long periods of time. When you think that we're living longer and longer and longer, the impacts of inflation can be really devastating. You don't typically feel inflation the first couple years of retirement. It's in the 5th year, it's in the 10th year when your clients cannot buy the same things that they bought at the beginning of retirement. One of the best ways that you can make sure that your client keeps pace with inflation is to make sure that your guaranteed income has inflation protection. That can be done through indexed annuity riders, that can be done through cost of living riders, but one of the easiest ways to do that is through maximizing Social Security. Next year, Social Security will have an increase of 2.8% to keep retirees up with the cost of wages and with the cost of goods and products that they buy. It's one of the easiest ways to make sure that your client has inflation protection. So your winning strategy is talk about the income in 10, 15, and 20 years from now and the impact of inflation with your clients. They'll be glad that you're looking that far in advance for them. In my third book, Free Throws for Financial Professionals, I tell a story about our regional final in 1987. As a student basketball manager at Indiana, I was standing behind our bench. It was the 8-minute timeout, and we were down by 8 points. We didn't really feel like we were going to have great success for the rest of the game. It was the first time that we had a little bit of doubt. Coach Knight talked about the plans and the tactics, and he didn't say that we had to do anything a whole lot different. We just had to go back and do things just slightly better. But at the end of that timeout, it was a turning point in the game. He looked at every player in the eye and he said, get me within 2 baskets with 2 minutes left to play and I'll win this game for you. Challenge everyone out there that your clients are asking for you to do the same thing. Help them get to retirement and then win the day for them. You win the day by taking risk off the table, and that includes guaranteed income, that includes taking long-term care risk off the table, that includes taking inflation off the table. So get your client within 2 baskets by the time that they retire, and then make sure that you win the day for them with proper planning. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Winning Strategies and that you were able to pull a lot of good ideas to help grow your business. You can stay up to date with Winning Strategies by following me on LinkedIn. Also follow me on Twitter at McGeeSpeaks. You can subscribe to Ash Brokerage on YouTube, and you can find the Winning Strategies podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Good selling.